Respect is not something you demand, and it's not something you negotiate. It's something you present through who you are. A woman doesn't respect a man because he talks about how confident he is, or because he tries to prove his worth through effort, explanations, or emotional declarations. Respect comes from what she feels when she observes you. Your presence, your composure, your boundaries, the way you respond to pressure, the way you handle conflict without losing control. All of these things communicate who you are far more effectively than any words ever could. When you are emotionally centered, you don't need to constantly repeat yourself or defend your value. You don't feel the need to convince her to see you a certain way because you already know who you are. There's a calmness to you that can't be faked. And when that calmness is real, a woman notices. She may not always speak on it, but she feels it. She feels that she can trust the direction of a man who doesn't get rattled by emotions, distance, silence, or small disagreements. She feels security in a man who isn't controlled by fear of losing her. Most men don't understand this. They think if she's slipping away, the solution is to grab harder, to call more, to ask why she's acting distant, to explain how much they care. But that only exposes insecurity. It shows she has too much emotional power. It reveals that his center is unstable. Instead of choosing her, he's trying to possess her. And when a man operates from fear, a woman instantly loses respect. She may stay physically, but emotionally, she's gone. To earn real respect, you have to live from a place of emotional strength. That strength is not about acting cold or careless. It's about valuing your peace and dignity enough to not break yourself trying to hold on to someone. It's about being able to say, if you want to be here, be here. If not, I'll be fine either way. That sentence doesn't have to be spoken. It has to be felt through your energy and behavior. When you detach from needing her validation, your behavior becomes consistent. You don't chase, you don't rush, you don't react emotionally to her moods or distance, you don't try to force closeness. You simply show up as yourself and allow her to choose you. And that's what creates respect. Not the performance, not the effort, not the speeches, but the willingness to remain solid and whole regardless of what happens. When a woman realizes you don't need her approval to feel valuable, that's when she truly recognizes your worth. That's when she sees a difference between a man who is afraid to lose her and a man who knows he can stand on his own. When you detach, you stop placing your sense of worth in the hands of another person. Most men don't realize how deeply they tie their identity to a woman's attention. When she texts back quickly, they feel confident. When she withdraws, they panic. Their emotional state rises and falls based on what she does. And the moment a woman senses that your happiness depends on her, she loses respect. Not because she wants to hurt you, but because she instinctively knows a man who needs her approval is not standing on his own 2 feet. Detachment is not about ignoring her or pretending you don't care. It's about knowing you will be okay with or without her. It's about understanding that your self-worth was never supposed to come from someone else's affection. When you detach, you're communicating that your life is full, meaningful, and grounded long before she entered it. You have passions, direction, purpose, a sense of who you are that can't be taken away by emotional shifts or temporary distance. This is why detachment creates attraction. It shows that your heart is not something that can be easily controlled. You are not chasing approval, validation, or reassurance. You are choosing the relationship from a place of strength, not desperation. When a woman sees that you can stand on your own, she actually feels safer with you, not because you are distant, but because you are stable. Think about the difference between wanting someone and needing them. When you want someone, it feels natural, open, relaxed. There is space for freedom, individuality, and trust. But when you need someone, the energy becomes heavy. You cling, you obsess, you seek constant reassurance, and that pressure makes the connection suffocate. A woman can feel when a man is clinging to her because he doesn't feel whole without her. It becomes emotional weight she did not ask to carry. Detachment removes that weight. It communicates without words that you choose her because you value her, not because you are afraid of losing her. And because of that, you stop reacting emotionally to her behavior. If she pulls back, you don't immediately chase. If she gets moody, you don't scramble to fix her emotions. If she tests your patience, you don't fold just to avoid discomfort. You remain steady. Steady is attractive, steady is respected. The truth is, when you detach, you're showing her the highest form of emotional maturity, the ability to love without possessing, to care without losing yourself, to give without expecting something in return. You are showing her that you are complete and anything she adds is appreciated but not required for your well-being. And a woman will always respect a man who is whole within himself. A woman will always test what she cannot fully understand, and what she senses has depth. When a man seems emotionally grounded, calm, and centered, she will observe whether that steadiness is genuine or just an act. This is why a woman tests. She is not doing it to damage you or to create conflict. She is doing it to understand you, to measure the truth in your confidence, to see whether the strength you display is something real or something that will collapse when pressure is applied. A woman wants to know if you are a man she can trust when life gets challenging, not just when things are easy. These tests come in subtle forms. Sometimes she pulls back emotionally just to see how you respond. Sometimes she becomes distant for a moment to see if you start chasing. Sometimes she creates space to observe whether you lose your sense of self. A woman pays attention to your emotional reactions more than your words. If your behavior changes drastically the second she creates distance, she immediately understands that your confidence was dependent on her presence. And once she knows that, she cannot respect you in the same way. Detachment is how you show that your emotional foundation is solid. When she becomes distant and you remain calm, patient, and unbothered, she realizes your sense of self does not collapse under emotional pressure. You don't try to force closeness. You don't try to fix what isn't yours to fix. You don't panic or beg or start overthinking. You simply stay grounded and continue living your life. That is the moment she sees the truth. Your confidence is internal, not conditional. A woman also wants to feel that she can be emotional without you reacting emotionally in return. If she's upset, stressed, or overwhelmed, she needs a man who can stay centered instead of matching her mood. When you react with frustration or insecurity, you mirror her storm. When you stay calm, you become the anchor in it. Detachment helps you remain that anchor because you are not emotionally controlled by her feelings or her temporary distance. You let her feel what she feels and you stay present without losing yourself. When you pass these tests, something shifts within her. The respect deepens, the trust strengthens. She feels safe to express herself more openly, and she becomes more affectionate because she knows she's with a man whose value is not dependent on her validation. She begins to move toward you, to open up, to invest, because she recognizes your emotional strength. But when you fail these tests, the opposite happens. The respect fades, the emotional connection weakens, and she slowly distances more. Not because she wants to, but because she sees that your emotional foundation was never solid to begin with. Detachment is not a tactic. It is proof of inner stability. When you pull back your energy and detach, something subtle but powerful begins to happen in the dynamic. The space you create shifts the entire emotional balance. Before, when you were given too much, texting first every time, initiating all the conversations, planning everything, emotionally carrying the connection, she never had to put effort in. She never had to wonder where she stood with you. She never had to think about whether she could lose you. And without that space, there is no room for her desire to grow. There is no room for her curiosity. There is no room for her appreciation. Detachment is what restores that space. When you stop chasing, you stop feeding the idea that your attention is guaranteed. When you stop overgiving, she begins to notice the difference, not because you are being strategic or manipulative, but because you have chosen to return to yourself, your peace, and your purpose. Your energy shifts from trying to hold her closer to simply allowing what is meant for you to come forward. In that space, she begins to feel something she may not have felt in a while. The desire to reach out, the desire to understand what you are thinking, the desire to put effort in. This is where the dynamic rebalances. She starts initiating conversations. She begins asking how you're doing. She wonders where your mind is, what you're focused on, and how she fits into your life. And this is not forced. It happens naturally when the pressure you were applying before is removed. When a woman no longer feels chased, she has the room to choose. Choice creates value, effort creates connection, and participation creates emotional investment. People value what they contribute to, not what is simply handed to them. When she begins investing emotionally, mentally, and physically, she feels more connected to the relationship because she is an active participant in it, not just a receiver of your efforts. Detachment also allows her to feel the reality of your presence by the contrast of your absence. When you are constantly available, constantly responding, constantly showing your interest, she never had the opportunity to miss you. And missing is a crucial part of attraction. Missing is what grows emotional attachment. Missing is what clarifies feelings. But none of this works if you detach from a place of resentment or bitterness. Detachment is not coldness. It is not punishment. It is not a silent threat. It is simply you returning to yourself. It is you focusing on your own life rather than trying to micromanage the relationship. It is you allowing her to feel her own emotions without trying to influence them. It is the confidence that if she wants to be part of your life, she will step forward willingly. And when she does, it's no longer a chase, it's mutual. It's balanced, it's real. When a man over focuses on a woman, he forgets himself. He forgets his own goals, his own growth, and his own identity. The relationship becomes the center of his existence instead of an addition to it. This is how the dynamic becomes unbalanced. One person becomes the pursuer, the pleaser, the one who gives and gives, hoping that the other person will eventually match the effort. But relationships don't work like that. The more you give from a place of need, the more the other person pulls back. The more you chase, the more they drift. The more you try to hold on, the faster the connection slips through your fingers. Detachment is the reset. It is the moment you shift your focus back to yourself. You return to your routines, your purpose, your passions, your self-respect. You stop living in reaction to her actions and start living in alignment with who you are. This is the moment where you reclaim your emotional authority. You no longer move based on whether she is warm or distant, loving or withdrawn. You move based on what aligns with your standards and your well-being. When you stop overemphasizing her, you naturally stop over-communicating, over-explaining, and over-giving. Instead of trying to prove your worth, you simply embody it. Your silence replaces your need to persuade. Your consistency replaces your need to impress. And ironically, this is what makes her look at you differently. She begins to feel the difference between the man who would bend his entire world just to keep her and the man who keeps his world steady no matter what happens. This is not about becoming selfish. It's about restoring balance. When a man places his life at the center, everything else falls into its correct place. He no longer feels threatened by space or distance. He no longer tries to control outcomes. He lets things unfold naturally because he trusts himself. A woman can feel this shift instantly. She feels that the emotional pressure has been lifted. Instead of being the prize you chase, she now has the opportunity to step forward, to contribute, to care, and to invest. Balance in a relationship is not created through negotiation or conversations about fairness. It is created through energy. When you stop overextending yourself, the dynamic naturally aligns. When you stop reacting emotionally to everything she does, your presence becomes calm and grounded again. When you stop trying to manage how she feels, she becomes responsible for her own side of the connection. And this is when respect begins to rebuild, because respect cannot exist where imbalance lives. Respect grows where self-respect is demonstrated. Respect deepens when both people contribute. And respect is sustained when a man knows who he is, independent of the relationship. Returning to yourself is not losing her, it is giving the connection the chance to become real again. When you finally detach completely, it's not just a physical act of stepping back, it's a profound mental shift that changes how she perceives you. Many men don't realize that respect isn't given just because you're attentive or constantly available. Women often value the presence of a man more when they sense he isn't dependent on them for validation or happiness. When you are emotionally independent, you stop reacting to every mood or message and you begin to live your life fully on your terms. This independence creates an unseen magnetic pull because it communicates self-worth and personal standards. It tells her that your time, energy, and attention are valuable and you won't waste them on someone who doesn't reciprocate respect or effort. Detachment also forces her to observe your absence and evaluate her own behavior. When you step back, she sees the contrast between when you were emotionally entangled and when you are now self-contained. This gap highlights qualities she may have taken for granted. Your patience, kindness, or the way you treated her without expectations. By detaching, you create a subtle tension where she begins to notice not just your presence, but also your value. She starts to understand that you are not someone who can be easily controlled, manipulated, or taken lightly. Respect grows naturally in this dynamic because it is no longer demanded, it is earned through your consistent demonstration of independence and self-respect. It's crucial to understand that detachment isn't about punishment or playing games, it's about realignment. You are not trying to make her chase you in a shallow sense. You are cultivating your own life, your own goals, and your own happiness. She can sense authenticity from miles away, and a man who has his own priorities and doesn't overinvest emotionally is inherently more attractive. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant without reason. It means your love and care are offered intentionally, not out of neediness or desperation. When she senses that your connection is a choice rather than a default, she naturally starts respecting the boundaries and standards you set. Another key aspect is how detachment strengthens communication. When you are emotionally grounded and self-reliant, your words carry weight. Your opinions, decisions, and actions are perceived as deliberate rather than reactive. This elevates your influence in the relationship because she recognizes that your choices are considered, not impulsive. A woman will respect a man who can hold his position calmly and confidently rather than one who bends or breaks at every emotional tide. Detachment allows you to set clear standards without hostility or frustration, which is far more effective than constant confrontation or pleading for respect. Finally, complete detachment allows the relationship to evolve naturally. It becomes less about control and more about mutual admiration. Respect is born when a woman sees a man who honors himself, prioritizes his life, and does not compromise his integrity for attention or approval. This transformation is subtle but powerful. The man who detaches completely does not shrink in her presence. Instead, he expands his own life and in doing so commands respect effortlessly. The truth is, respect cannot be demanded, it can only be earned, and detachment is the silent yet most potent tool to cultivate it.